So in this video we're going to talk about the math requirements at UNLV. So students are required to complete 3 credits of math in order to fulfill their general education requirements. And just like in the English, you need to have an ACT or an SAT score on file before you can register. But let's say you don't, or you've scored at least a 20 or below a 20 or below a 500 on the math portion of these tests, then you could take Math 95, and that's where you would actually place, and that would be a 3-credit course. If you did score at least a 20 or at least a 500, then that would allow you to take the Math 96 course, which is the next level up from the 95, and that's also 3 credits. And of course, if you've taken Math 95 already somewhere else and transfer that in, then you can also use that as a prerequisite for Math 96. If you scored a 22 or 520, this is where it actually gets kind of interesting. You can actually take one of 4 different math courses. Those math classes would be Math 120, Math 122, 124, and 126 for 3 credits. And you do have a lot of options here because each major or all the different majors require different math. So depending on which major you pick, that's going to determine which math class you're going to pick. And so don't worry about which math class it is right now. Just make a note of the score, and then we can discuss with you a little bit more what your options might be in terms of what you're thinking about in terms of major. So if we go on with the scores here, if you've scored at least a 25 or 560, that would actually allow you to take Math 127 or Math 128. And then finally, if you've scored at least a 28 or a 630, that would allow you to take Math 181. So the key thing to remember here is that even though you may have a 28 or a 630, doesn't necessarily mean you have to take this math class. It's just saying that you can take this math class if you want to, and if your major requires it, then obviously you want to take this math class. But if you've scored a 28 or a 630 and you pick your major and your major only requires 124, then just take 124. You don't have to take 181 unless you won't have to. Now another thing to note is that these 2 courses up here, the Math 95 and the Math 96, these 2 courses do not apply or not apply towards the 3-credit math requirements, but you may have to take them if you scored in this level. So if you scored less than a 20 or 20, you'll have to take 95, then go to 96, and then take whichever one your major requires. So some of you may have to go 95, 96, and 127, or up to 181, or just 122. So again, you might not know what that is yet, but if you look at the general education sheet that we provided for you, you'll notice there's a little graph that you can look at, and this little graph will help you decide which major requires what math. So if we look at this, you can see that let's see what we have here. We've got all these down here: liberal arts, fine arts, urban affairs require Math 120. And these are just guides. This is not set in stone, but these are just general recommendations. So if you're business, hotel, social work, then you would just need Math 124 up here. And then if you're Math 126, those would be for the science engineering majors. So again, just circle the ones that you are able to register for and make a note of those. And then if you have more questions, obviously you can always contact us ahead of time or just ask some questions once you get to the orientation.